Good evening, everyone. With the time being 6:00 p.m. on Tuesday, February 11th, 2025, I will call this meeting of the Webster School Committee to order and ask that we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded, both video and audio, and will be posted on the district website. The first item on the agenda is the discussion and approval of the minutes from the January 28th meeting. Is there any discussion around those minutes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve them.
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Desiree, would you please pull the committee?
Member Adamopoulos?
Yes.
Member Scarnita?
Yes.
Member Miller?
Yes.
President?
Yes, motion passes. The next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Good evening, Mrs. Perangeli.
Good evening and happy Valentine's Day week to everybody. Hopefully we're partially through February, and hopefully the weather will agree with us as we continue through the rest of the month. I know the pattern looks a little scary, so we're keeping an eye on it, and hopefully we won't have to miss any more days. But I'll jump right into my report under personnel update. We have no current retirements at this time, no new announcements. We did have a new hire, Mr. Ryan Osborne, who is the special ed teacher at Webster Middle School. So that's great news there. And then we also had Madison Vutas, an instructional assistant at Bartlett High School. So we'd like to welcome them to the district. They're eager to get started, and we're happy they're aboard. We have no new resignations at this time and no transfers at this time. And again, below you see in your packet the vacancies that we've continued to carry, but we're happy to take a couple off that list. Moving on to instructional leadership. This past Wednesday, as part of our monitoring of our instructional priority, the district leadership team, the DILT team we call them, participated in our mid-year progress monitoring. It's an opportunity for us to reflect on where we're at this point in the year. We're at the halfway mark, a little more than halfway, and to see how we're making progress towards our instructional priority and see if we need to make any shifts as we move forward to finish the year. So we're looking at some data. We will continue that at our next DILT meeting and make any adjustments necessary as we continue through the school year. And then on this past Friday, February 6th, the district had a half professional day. I put copies of the grids in your packet for your review. As you know, we continue to strive to offer meaningful professional development that fosters growth and practices and are in alignment with our instructional priority. Are there any questions about the instructional leadership update? No? Okay. Under other updates, Mrs. Contos and I have been extremely busy with meetings. As you know, with the building project, we are getting closer to the completion of phase 1. We have been, I think one day alone, I looked at our calendars, and from the time we came in to the time we went home at night, we had 8 hours of building meetings in that one day. There are a lot of questions that need to be answered as it comes to fruition and us moving in, final decisions made. We're looking at signage, we're looking at FF&E, we're looking at technology. I know Ms. Contos will get more into that in her report, but there's a lot of moving pieces right now. Gina's been in many of those meetings with us as well, as we're getting ready for that April break. As of now, we're on target, and we keep our fingers crossed every day. So we're moving along. It's good stuff happening. On Friday, January 31st, there was a family engagement meeting held here. I will pass it over to Dr. McKay to give an update on that meeting.
Good evening. So as Ms. Perangeli said, our last meeting was Friday, January 31st, and a couple of updates from that meeting based on the previous meeting's recommendations. Each school has identified one administrator or staff member who will be the contact person for communicating with local papers, just to get the face of Webster out there more frequently and more organized way. The other big thing that we connected with was looking at increasing our collaboration with the Webster Public Library and potentially North Village, as North Village has a community space and there's a person that we can contact with to hold perhaps LPAC meetings or CPAC meetings or family engagement activities after school in those spaces. So if, not only do we want families to come to us, but we can go to them as well. And perhaps those two spaces would yield better opportunities for parents to connect with us. So that's something that we're looking at as well. The rest of the meeting, we really focused on the updates regarding supporting students and families who may be impacted by immigration change. We had been, I know that it was reported at the last meeting, but we have been over the last couple of weeks inundated with webinars and memos, and every department is sending and they're all collaborating, but it seems like every department sends out a memo and hosts a webinar. So we've attended many. As L director, we've met as L directors across the state to support students and to provide information to staff on ways to support our students and families. Our message remains consistent with the commissioner's message, and that is to focus on how we protect student information, how we protect access to buildings, and that we have discussed with our administrators and our staff what our protocols should be should there be any visits by federal agents. So the message is really to focus on understanding that people are concerned and have fears, but to focus on what we have control over within the district, and that is the safety of our students and their information. And so, like I said, the superintendent and I have attended several webinars, including the one sponsored by the Commissioner's Office with immigration attorneys, with other directors of ELS, with the Office of Language Acquisition, and all of the different offices are collaborating to share information as quickly as they can with all of us in a concerted way. So we're trying to put all that together to provide the consistent message to our staff. The other thing, and I don't want to steal Mrs. Nieves' thunder about Saturday school, because I know she's going to talk about Saturday school, but the other big piece of engagement that we've seen is we've seen a lot of students, more students participate in Saturday school. We average about 30 students, 35 students split between the high school and the middle school, providing opportunities for students to get caught up with work. Some students at the high school are coming for different reasons, and I'll let her explain that. But what I wanted to focus on this time is I really want to give a shout out to Mrs. Nieves, because she doesn't have to be there, but she is. And she's meeting with all of her students. She goes around with her little Chromebook and she opens up their grade book so that students know exactly what they need to do. And that's amazing. And I just really, really wanted to give that shout out to her, because students come and they say, I don't know what I need to do. I'm not sure. I don't know where to start. And so sitting individually with every student has really made a difference. I'm so impressed by the fact that we have students asking if they can come, even though they don't have to come. And that it really means that you've built that relationship and provided that safety network where they feel like they can do that. So I just wanted to applaud you with that. And that's what I have.
Thank you, and I second that. Doing a great job with that. And also, I'll give you a shout out, because you don't have to be there. We have somebody running the program, but she hasn't missed a Saturday yet. So thank you for that. Moving on Thursday, that's this week, Thursday, February 13th, I am attending the legislative brunch, which is hosted by the Worcester County Superintendent's Association. I'm looking forward to attending that, just to have discussions with our legislators about Chapter 70 funding, what that looks like, what's going on across the state with funding in our districts, and it's an opportunity for our voice to be heard, to talk about the needs of our community and our school districts. So I'm looking forward to that. And then on Friday, February 14th, I have a board meeting for the Southern Worcester County Collaborative in Oxford. It's budget season, so I'm sure we'll be getting another look at their budget as we move forward through that. And then lastly on my report, just an update about the Power School data breach, as you know. We continue to monitor the situation. We are following our advice from legal counsel provided through our insurance carrier, where they specialize in cybersecurity. There's a link on our district website that we keep there with a phone number. If anybody is looking for additional information, if you hear anything, direct them currently to our district website. And people should be checking the website regularly as Power School is consistently posting updates. So we're happy to have the support from legal counsel through our insurance carrier, and they are supporting many districts across the state and are keeping up to date on that. And that concludes my report. Are there any questions?
Thank you,
Through
Mrs.
the chair,
Frangeli. Yes,
I
Ms.
do
Mallett?
have a question. I might have missed this, but it's been on with the people we need, the 7th grade math teacher, and it's not on now. So what has happened?
Yep, we've had a teacher filling in that
Right.
position all year. He's been permanently moved to that position.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So we were trying to keep the position open to put him back into the academic interventionist position for the math. But since we're not getting any applicants, we made the move permanent for stability for the kids. It's better. And frankly, he's doing an amazing job in that position. He's doing incredible work. I actually heard it today when I was over at the middle school at the meeting. They were talking about the great work he's doing in that class.
That's awesome. I'm
Yep.
glad he's staying.
Yep.
Great. Any other questions or comments from the committee? All right. Well, the next item on the agenda is a business manager report. Good evening, Mrs. Contos.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to start with some building committee or building project updates. I know a couple of you were able to join the school building committee last week when we did a walkthrough of the renovated section. I hope you enjoyed seeing it actually in person rather than the pictures and the updates. We are really on the final stretch now with just a couple months to go. So as the superintendent mentioned, our PM is very actively working with the project team on all dependencies with respect to the scheduling, as well as closing out and managing and mitigating all risks to make sure that we're clearing the way so that we're able to get through the critical path to completion. So in terms of what to expect over the next 3 weeks, I included this in your packet, but I'll go over it. In the kitchen, they're working on completing the installation of the full ceiling grid. They have epoxied the floor by now. They've delivered and installed most of the kitchen equipment, with the exception of the equipment that we do need to move from our existing kitchen, and I'll get into that in a moment. And then they're working on all the final power connections within the kitchen. We do have a couple items in our existing kitchen that will move over. We have 2 ovens. One will move as soon as they're ready to install that, and then we have a kettle and another oven that will move. The kettle's going to move about a month early, and then the last oven will move after the transition is completed. I'm happy to report that we also did a walkthrough with the health agent in town as well as the regional health inspector, just to make sure we understood what really needed to be in place for sign-off. They were very comfortable with the approach that we were recommending with respect to the equipment, so we don't foresee any issues with that. In the auditorium, they're completing the sheetrocking and taping of the walls. They're installing all of the ductwork hangers, installing fire protection, the catwalk, the chairlift, and they're completing all of the rough electrical in the ceiling and installing the rails. The only item within the auditorium that we don't anticipate will be fully complete by opening is all of the theatrical lights in the auditorium. Not a reason for us to hold up opening, but it's one of the things we might not have ready in time for award ceremonies in May. In the basement, they are tiling the trainer's room. They're installing lights. They're finishing up on the flooring, installing ceiling grid, just like we are in the other areas, getting all of the plumbing fixtures installed, getting the bathroom partitions up, and all of the hallway flooring down as well. On the first floor, similar themes. Sheetrocking is going on, ceiling grids as well. Tiling, I would say that's really the theme across everywhere. The second floor is a little further along than the first floor, so some of the additional things that they're doing on that floor is they're installing the flooring in all the classrooms. The ceiling tiles are being installed, as well as whiteboards, doors, and hardware over the next 3 weeks. In terms of logistical planning, we're working on finalizing the keying schedule, all the names on all the signs. What does the move planning look like? What kind of communications do we need to have in place? We have confirmed that the new main office, which is the existing nurse's office, will have a new door installed over February break, and they're also working to ensure that the intercom system will be bridged together so that we have one new building with the new intercom system and then the old one, and that it bridges together so that we can manage communications throughout a fragmented building in Phase 2. I want to keep saying that because we will really be working in 3 independent buildings come Phase 2, which will be a little bit more challenging. I may have mentioned this in the last meeting, so I apologize if this is a repeat, but we are also relocating the construction fencing from what I'll call the front side of the building to the back side of the building in Phase 2. It's deliberate for 2 reasons. One is we didn't want the students, as they were making moves from whether they're coming from this section of the building or the modulars, to have to go by the construction site and encounter workers or people coming in and out. But in addition, the GC would like to get started on some of the earthwork and groundwork related to the playground for pre-K, which would come in Phase 3. So they're looking to get started on that in Phase 2. So we will be losing a good portion of the central office parking lot in Phase 2. We'll be down to only visitor parking here, and everyone will be parking in the tennis court parking lot. So parking can get challenging at times. I think we're still managing it and continuing to monitor it as we go. Let me pause there and see if there's any questions.
The 3-week look ahead is great. It's nice to be able to really understand what's happening in the immediate future. Just a quick update or reminder for all of us here and those listening. Phase 2 is going to start, obviously, April. And that's going to consist of?
Phase 2 is B section.
Yep.
So just like we experienced with this phase of the project, we'll start with demo activities. So demolition starts first and all of the abatement. And then we begin the restructuring of the inside of that building at that time. What I can't tell you for sure, because I know it's been talked about as being either Phase 3 or Phase 2, but our GC likes to get ahead of the schedule. That's how he likes to operate. There's a potential that the existing cafeteria could get demoed in Phase 2. It was originally, I think, a Phase 3 item, but there's some talks about that happening in Phase 2.
Okay, great. And our end goal is when, sorry?
Oh, the end for the project?
I'd like to say not soon enough, but really, we're talking about, 2026 into 2027, because we talk about 3 phases, but there really is a 4th phase. We kind of gloss over that.
Yeah,
And that is the removal of the modular buildings and then the paving of that area for parking. So that's technically Phase 4.
Yeah, that would start after, the end game for the building was December. Our contractor keeps saying, we'll be in October. So he's thinking we're going to be in there.
That sounds ambitious, but.
It's
but that's
ambitious
great.
and it's a
Yeah.
great goal, but there's still, like Ms. Conto says, closeout work that's going to have to happen, that commissioning work, cleaning up the outside. So as we move into Phase 2, as we get closer, we're working on what is our communication plan going to look like? How are we going to communicate the changes? 1, to students, 2, to parents, 3, to the community. It's not going to change our traffic pattern, but where you access the office, what does that look like? So we'll have more informational sessions as we go through so people will understand what to expect in Phase 2, the changes that are ongoing, because we understand communication is key here on how we proceed to make it successful. So we'll continue to work on that as we get closer. We don't want to do it too early, and plus we want to make sure that we're actually in April, so as we get closer, we'll have a good idea of that, but we'll get that communication out there to families so they know what to expect coming back from April break.
Yeah, sounds great.
Any other questions? Okay. In maintenance updates, Bartlett, can't believe I have to report this, but in Section A, we had a significant leak last week, and it was significant. I think we had about 8 to 10 buckets filled up. So it has been addressed with a short-term fix and under control at this point in time, but it was pretty significant. So As I said, this can't happen fast enough. The building is holding on as much as it can, but we did get that under control. And then lastly, in other updates, just want to make you aware that we have 2 audits that are currently in progress. Standardly, on an annual basis, our end-of-year report is audited, and that's underway right now. And in addition to that, we also do what's called a single audit, and that is an audit that's done on municipalities that receive federal funding through grants. So if you receive more than $500,000, your municipality is subject to audits on those particular grants. So those are underway. So we're waiting for those audits to be complete and to see what the findings are. And of course, I'm anxious because it was my first end-of-year report, so I can't wait to see how well I got it. If I did an okay job on it, very selfishly. So that's it for updates from me.
Great. Well, thank you for your updates, Mrs. Contos. Any other questions or comments from the committee? All right, well, hearing none, the next item on the agenda is the principal report. Good evening, Ms. Nieves.
Good evening. So the first thing I wanted to talk about quick was the Saturday school that Ms. Mackay had mentioned. We started off, we're on week 5. We just finished week 5. Our first week had 3 students. Next week was snow. We only had 1. The following one, we had 14. We went up to 21. Last week was down a little bit. We were back to 11. So what had happened is we started by inviting our students that lost points for attendance from quarter 1. So we were able to get that at the tail end. So we only had 1 Saturday once that started. So we saw the increase once quarter 2 ended. So we invited the students who waited last quarter to the very end to come make up their time, and they're coming already. On top of that, we gave the opportunity for our seniors that had graduation requirements to make up that time and that work. So we gave some incompletes out to them and reached out to parents and worked with the students, so they were coming. And then I also put a form out to staff, students, and parents asking if they would like their students to come, and they're coming in left and right. So hopefully that's ongoing. Hopefully that continues. Like Ms. Mackay said, I sit with every one of them, you know, what do they want to work on? What do they have? And we just, between myself and the other staff that are there, just kind of make our way to everyone multiple times throughout the day. And they're working. They're, you know, they take a break halfway through and that's it. From 8 to 12, they're working the entire time. So hopefully those kids keep coming in more. I wanted to let you know we're ahead of our game on scheduling for the first time in a while. We have started to look at and have completed, our departments have edited their parts of the handbook with their courses, submitted new course forms to us to start to look at. It's my hope that for our next meeting, I'd like to bring in front of you at least the course sections of the program of studies so we can get that in front of our kids. I think I'd have to come back one more time with the complete book, but if we could look at possibly just the courses at our next meeting, so the kids can be chosen and finished with their selection by April vacation versus going through it. And that includes the 8th grade as well, the rising 9th graders. So that's ongoing already. We're in the middle of testing. We just wrapped up access testing this week. That was almost a 2-month-long process, a month and a half. We've just finished our makeups for MCAS for the biology. We have a small group coming up right after break for the ELA and math MCAS retests. And then our big one for the ELA is happening at the end of March, on March 25th. And in the middle of that, on February 13th, we actually have, it's a National Assessment of Educational Progress, the NAEP testing for our seniors. And that's designed to measure the academic performance of the nation's students at grade 12. They do it at grade 4 and 8 also, but ours is on February 13th. So that's going on. And then we have a lot of events coming up. We have our PBIS dance on Friday. We have our sports and entertainment group going to a conference this week also on Friday. We have a PBIS community event for bingo on the 26th. A DECA state competition coming up at the end of, from February 27th to March 1st. We have our student council conference coming up in March. Right now we have planned an MCAS informational night for our parents that are going to be taking for the students that are taking the 10th grade MCAS. Right now, I'm looking at March 5th to have that open to discuss what it's like, what the changes are, and how we move forward with that, so they have a better understanding. We have some QCC decision days coming up in March, and then right now we have on a PBIS Family Feud event for the students during the day on March 21st. So a bunch of things coming up. Any questions?
Sounds like lots happening. all the
Yeah.
things.
Yep.
Any questions from the committee? No?
I have Hope's report too, so I'll,
Okay.
she had a couple things in there, if I can add those in.
Yep. Do you want to table Hope's report
Sure.
for a moment?
Yep.
And we'll move on to Mr. Janess, and then we can move back to Hope.
Sure can.
So just a bit out of order, under new business, we have an item, the approval of an overnight field trip, the BHS DECA Club to the state competition in Boston. Good evening.
Hi, thank you. So yeah, this year we currently have 4 students that qualified at districts to go to the state competition. The state competition, as Ms. Niev has mentioned, is at the end of the month. It's from the 27th to the 1st. 2 of those students actually were first place in districts at Nichols, which is awesome. That's the first time we've had first place in a long time, so that was great. So it's 4 students for the 2 nights. It's in Seaport at the Boston Convention Center. It's an event that hosts about 5,000 students total throughout Massachusetts. So they'll be competing against 5,000 other students roughly. And they have a whole series of competitions that they go through the 3 days that they're there. They have to do a test before they go. They do a test when they're there. They do multiple role plays. And if they made it past that point, then they would qualify to go to nationals, which is another whole event in itself. But so I'm just seeking approval to take those 4 students overnight to Boston.
Well, thank you for that, and congratulations to you and to the whole team,
Yeah, thanks.
especially those 2 first-place finishers. Any questions or comments from the committee? No? Is it just you and the 4 students going?
It is, yep. It's just me and the 4 students. Typically how it is because obviously I'm a male advisor, they make sure that we have also a female advisor because I have a female student going as well. So we're all roomed on the same floor, so we kind of work as a team to make sure that all of our students are where they need to be and so forth, so.
Okay. So you have a female advisor too?
I do not, but there's a female advisor from another school that'll
Oh, I
be
see.
on the same floor as us in the same hotel, so they make sure that we can work together and
Perfect.
so, yeah. So we're all in the same hotel, we're still all male on the same floor, it's just, we have to kind of work together because not every school like us, we have 4 students where other schools might have 150, so.
Sure. Yeah.
So it all depends, yeah.
Right. That makes sense. It's hard to justify 2 chaperones for 4 students.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve this overnight field trip as presented.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Desiree, would you please poll the committee?
Yes.
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 Yes, motion passes. Good luck and congratulations in advance for what you've already accomplished. We can't wait to hear how you do.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. So moving on and getting back in order, we're going to take our next item on the agenda being the student representative update. And Ms. Nieves, you're standing in for Hope this evening?
I am. There were a couple duplicates, so I'll just go through the ones that are not. So she had that Bartlett had the ELA iReady test in their homerooms recently. That we have efforts to create a school council, and we have our parents. We're now looking for student representatives. Seniors have been doing a Valentine's fundraiser, selling stuffed animals, boxes of chocolates, and rubber ducks. And the National Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association Scholar Essay application is still open for students that are eligible. And all of our local scholarships for seniors can be found on the weekly newsletter by Ms. Nieves. Upcoming tomorrow night on the 12th is our basketball senior night at the game. Saturday school is held going forward for the month of March on the 1st, the 8th, the 15th, the 22nd, and the 29th. It's a long one. February break kicks off following this week, And then March Madness will kick off the following month, and National Honor Society is finalizing their events as well as the themes for every Friday of the month. That's all.
Great. Well, thank you. Those are great updates also. Any questions or comments from the committee? No? Okay. Well, thank you once again, Ms. Nieves. Next item on the agenda under old business is a monthly fundraising update. Just as a reminder, it's the role of the school committee to review the fundraising activities, but we don't approve them. That's done at the building level. And I see there's a couple of things in here. There's a Webster Middle School Theater fundraiser, Pop and Popcorn, which is part of the concert and jazz band. The Bartlett softball program is going to be, what are we selling here? Oh, all kinds of food and concessions and things like that. Webster Middle School Band and Chorus sold some gourmet popcorn. Bartlett DECA, lots of fundraisers. Bartlett's Student Council and NHS, Bartlett Gridiron Club, the 1822 vocational program. I'm not gonna, one more, and another one by the Gridiron Club, Celebrity Bartender Night at Cinny's. So get out there and support that one. It's on the 22nd. Any questions or comments from the committee about all of the fundraising activities? Okay. Next item on the agenda is policy JKAA, physical restraint of students, and that will be the second reading of that policy.
Nope.
The next,
Nothing's changed since the last. Yep.
okay. And then the next item on the agenda is an update on the FY26 budget.
Yeah. All right.
Wanted to stop with left off on last meeting, focused a lot on that percent funding, foundation budget. Talk a little bit about the work that. So just to kind of step back on our preliminary budget. This budget submitted by all departments over the prior fiscal. What we have been working independently and as a group, evaluate how could reductions over the prior. So in that, we identifying budget by. Hey, now you can hear me at home. Sorry, my mic was not on. And so that we can reduce it by $645,991 to get down to a 6% increase overall, which is a little over 29 million was the original submitted budget. This one is 28.3. So let's jump into the next slide to highlight what were some of those changes that we looked at with respect to a 6% increase budget. So we made some reductions across the entire budget. We made reductions in the annual salary increase amounts. We also went back and looked at curriculum, and for Wonders and Open SciEd, they were originally funded under a 3-year agreement with some savings, obviously, with going with the 3-year agreement up front to just a 1-year renewal. So we'd be renewing on an annual basis. So just for folks listening, oftentimes when you commit to a 3-year arrangement, you get some hefty savings as a result of that. But that means that we have a bigger amount in 1 year and then lower amounts in the next 2. So to flatten this out, we're going with a 1-year curriculum renewal. We also moved on in looking at some of the positions that we had included in that budget. So we have eliminated the long-term building subs. We eliminated the .5 L teacher for Park Ave, as well as the full-time 1.0 position of a world language teacher at Webster Middle School. We also did an analysis of the software that we're using across the district. What is the level of usage? Is there any overlap in other things that are going on? And we eliminated certain software packages from being renewed next year. And then finally, we made an increase in the amount of money that we would be applying from circuit breaker. So we increased that circuit breaker amount by $300,000. So those are all offsets, which helped us make those reductions so that we could get to a 6% budget. So what does that mean in terms of what comes next? So we are also underway working on how we can get another version of the budget, which is what we'll call our 4% version. We actually have a session tomorrow morning where we'll be meeting as a group again to talk through what our options are to get to a 4% budget. It's our intention to bring both of those budgets to the next school committee meeting on 2/25 so that we can make a determination of which one that we want to submit to the town manager on the 26th. We are obligated by town charter to submit to the town manager by the 26th. We will continue to collaborate with the town manager and the town accountant, but the superintendent and I already have met with them. And what we can share from that conversation is they're still working to finalize the overall town budget. So they're working with their department heads. They're working to validate revenues. They still haven't received the Bay Path assessment yet. But what we do know is revenue's flat, right? We're not seeing a lot of new growth in Webster, so we're essentially looking at flat revenues in town. And then, of course, the other thing that we want to do, and we've talked about this in past sessions, is get those budget workshops scheduled with the school committee so that we can do a deeper dive after we submit those budgets on 2/26. So that's the work that's underway. Let me just pause there just to see if there's any questions about what we just presented.
I have a question through the chair.
Yep, member Scraig there.
Sorry, I
My
was
turn.
looking at, so like, 'cause she was, I didn't know who was gonna go first. Just a quick question, the ELL teacher, that .5, that, I thought that was under, like a must-have compliance. So I'm just making sure we're good there.
So I think that eliminating this part has really made us take a look at the entirety of the staff across the district and how we're utilizing all staff members across the district. And that we'll have to continue looking at our numbers between now and the end of the year and perhaps make different use of the current staff that we have so that we're still going to be able to meet the needs of the students without sacrificing the L portion of the way that the staff is being utilized currently.
Just one more question. So the curriculum updates, so was the Open SciEd going to be the new science curriculum for the Webster Middle School, or is that still something that we're looking for to do? I see renewing the Wonders.
Yep, it's still in there.
So those two, it's just the 1 year, not the, so that's still happening, it's just for 1 year.
Correct. Question?
Thank you for the questions and answers.
Through the chair.
Member Millet?
My concern is the elimination of the world language teacher. This has been in the budget since the junior high went over to the middle school, and it's been cut every single year. I really think we need to look at having that teacher. I mean, it's been cut, how long have they been there? Almost 10 years.
It's just, we're limited with what we can eliminate. So, we're trying to be creative and look at collectively our staff across the district. How are we utilizing our staff? What's the best place? But this was a way to reduce a position without reducing a body of somebody that we currently already have in the district when we're looking at the needs of all of our positions in the district. I think we're all in agreement that it would be a wonderful thing to have and that we would like to have, and it would benefit the kids going up. But at the cost, it has to come at the cost of what other cut are we going to make? What other reduction? And where else can we see the savings to reduce that?
I guess what I'm asking is there a way to look at something else since this particular position has been cut every single year since the junior high has been over there? That one position's been cut.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, maybe somebody else can take that, someplace else maybe can take that hit to try to get that position. It's just the one that's always been cut.
Mm-hmm. We're looking and we're trying to be as creative as possible, but we'll certainly take your thoughts into account.
Well, and I would like to, first of all, agree that I would love to see a world language teacher at the middle school. And I really think that it's incumbent on all of us to look at this creatively. We all have the budget available to us that we can all look at and offer some suggestions or alternatives, either at these meetings or when we have those upcoming budget workshops. I know we're all digging deep to try to preserve jobs and keep the people who are working in this district. But, I too would love to see our world language offered at the middle school.
To the chair.
Member Adamopoulos?
Is the increase in the circuit breaker coming from the cushion that we kind of build into it from year to year?
Sorry. Typically, we like to carry over a year. We knew that wasn't already going to happen, so this is going to reduce it. So we're estimating that we would be carrying over about $775,000. A full year of it, if we take in what we take this year, would have been $1.6 million. So we're reducing our carryover into FY27 by doing that. But if we don't do that, then we've got to cut another $300,000 from the budget.
How much is the cushion?
Right now, it's
700 now without that 300?
with the 300.
With the 300.
Yes. Yeah.
So the only issue with that is obviously
Anything that comes up,
next year,
right.
you'd have to, that $300,000 would either have to get taken out again, or we're trying to come up with $300,000 to
Right.
balance where we're at.
And we still have half a school year to go. So, that's what that money's for, move-ins, move-outs, looking at balancing and helping any of those big ticket items that come in. It's a constant moving target, special ed tuition. I mean, when we were coming in to today, we had reviewing the tuition, there was a couple move-outs that we have, so we know there's going to be some savings next year. So we were talking, okay, how do we adjust that savings now, maybe going into the next, because we didn't know about them when we were putting this together. They just happened. So maybe some of that savings can be offset. But it's not going to be easy getting down to 4%, because getting down to 4% is cutting another 500,000, I think, 500,000 or 600,000 to get down. This is not easy, because if you sit and you talk with every building, I don't think we don't have a lot of fluff or extra stuff built into our budget, or staff sitting around, extra staff that we're not utilizing. Everybody here is important, and the work that we're doing is important. So when we start looking at that number, it's very difficult to cut that big a number without getting into personnel or staffing positions. And then, prioritizing them by compliance and need. In class size, what do we need to keep our class sizes down? So this is hard work. It's something that we don't take lightly. It's something that we spend a lot of time discussing, talking about the pros and the cons, talking about the needs of the district, where we're trying to head, the work that we're doing. It's complicated and it's difficult, and we take it very seriously. It's not something that is just done in a moment's notice.
To the chair,
Member Adamopoulos?
quick question. So there's been talk from a federal perspective of freezing grants and potential aid. Is there anything from our current built-in budget that could be affected by that?
Yes, Yep, we have received Title I funding and special ed funding. Out of Title I, it supports our academic interventionists at all of our school, well, 3 or 4 of them. It supports our director sitting here tonight. Our special ed supports about $400,000 to $500,000 of our paraprofessionals that we have across the district, in addition to contracted positions that we have that come in, like French River, who service some of our speech kids, and we have psychological services. As you know, we haven't been able to hire a school psych, so we're outsourcing that. That's paid through contracted services. There are many things that are grant funds that if that funding is frozen or gone, we're going to lose positions that we cannot sustain it. So it's huge for us.
For all districts, right? I mean,
Everybody.
obviously, all of
We're
us
not,
here are
we're
primarily
not
concerned
working
with
in
Webster, but
isolation.
This would be devastating
for
across.
across the board for everybody. Yeah.
Through the chair,
Member Scariglia?
I just want to point out, you guys have been going down what you've done within the past 2 weeks. I know it's going to even, but you've already eliminated pretty much that whole tier 3 of budget versions. One being the special education staff that are required, the nursing that is required, all the,
We haven't removed that.
no, you haven't.
Yeah.
The lane stuff, like those things that are just, I'm saying, like, when you break it down to like the meat and potatoes, you've gotten rid of all the extra stuff already, so it's gonna be the 4%.
Yeah. I mean,
budget.
we're prioritizing school safety. We're prioritizing compliance.
Right.
And, our instructional priority curriculum has been, that's something that we don't want to cut, something that we need to continue growing. We've been working really hard at bringing HQIM in our district. So, we're really prioritizing the needs of our district and what's best for our students first. But this is not going to be easy.
Through the chair,
Yes, Member Scariglia?
we're language, and, I know we definitely want to offer, something special that's going to be useful for our kiddos who are Spanish speakers, or to like get them prepared for the, being the tests that they take to be duolingual or proficient. And I'm wondering, I don't know, like online, I don't know if it's offered at the high school, if the 8th graders is something, I don't know if that could be offered to them, an online Spanish course or French course, or like an after school, if one of the world language teachers at the high school would want to offer an after school club, Spanish. So just in the future, like if there's any other way of maybe not having it a full-time position, but some other offering that the kiddos could get to prepare them for high school, or whatever they get that exposure before they get there.
Good points.
Yeah, great idea. Yeah, I like the idea, the club. That's great.
Sorry, is the online offered at 8th grade, or no? That's too young.
It's not yet.
Yes, yeah.
We currently don't offer it. We only have online classes for high school students, but the platform that we use does have, it does go down to middle school. And so it's certainly something that we can take a look at.
Yeah, for selected, like few, or, could be instead of,
Instead of enrichment.
right.
That's an example. Instead of like the enrichment block, a select group of students could be taking an online Spanish class that's supported by somebody, not taught by somebody, but
Right.
supported by
And
somebody.
that could be a means that's not, a full-time teaching salary.
That's a great point.
Certainly worth looking into.
Any other questions or comments from the committee?
If there's no additional questions, I actually would like to share some additional budget information, if that's okay.
Please do.
So aside from our LEA budget, which we're required to submit to the town hall by the end of this month, we also submit a budget for transportation on an annual basis. And that transportation budget is a budget line item in the town budget that's somewhat considered as a shared cost between the town and the school. And so we have submitted that budget to the town, and I wanted to give you an overview of it. So because it is an increase, a significant increase from last year, we're submitting an overall transportation budget of 3.9 million. And of that 3.9 million, 27% of that is for regular ed transportation and 73% is for special ed transportation. Just to give you some sense of what we provide from a reg ed, sort of regular ed transportation, we have 9 routes that run for Webster Middle School and Bartlett. We have 10 routes for Park Ave, and we have 2 parochial school routes. From a special ed standpoint, in this projection that we've provided, that accounts for 49 routes across 9 different providers. Our most predominant provider that we use for transportation is AA Transportation. They represent 73% of our special education transportation routes that we have, or costs. But it's really hard to source it. Not every transportation provider has enough vehicles and drivers to provide the needs that we have for the district. So we rely on other transportation providers and actually some other schools that also will provide transportation resources for us. A couple other things to be aware of is when we look at the special education transportation, a little over $1 million of that is for in-district special education transportation. The remaining, the 1.8, is for out-of-district transportation. Another sort of point to be aware of is when we did the fiscal year 25 transportation budget, the number of routes that we had at that time was much less, and that's gone up 58% from when we did that last year. So I think the theme, or what I'm trying to convey here, and we've been talking about this, is our special education cost collectively through tuition, contracted services, and transportation just continues to grow. We do our best at a point in time to kind of snap the line on what it looks like, but as the superintendent said, I go back and I look at what's come in, and a couple new routes will get added, right? So we do our best to draw the line, and when we do our submissions on it, but it's very fluid. Things can come on, things can come off. But that is what we have submitted to the town at this time.
And I think it's important to note, because when we talk about, revenue coming into the town and how funding works, and just to remind the committee that when they look at what they're supplying to the school and the town, they take the shared costs off the total revenue. So what they do is they take all the state aid that's coming in. They include the Chapter 70 funds along with the government funds that they're getting at the town level funds. They add that into revenue, and then they reduce it by the shared costs. Those shared costs would be health insurance, retirement, transportation. They take that off the top, and then whatever's remaining, they divide 70-30. So 70 goes to the school department because we have predominantly more staff here, and then 30% goes to the town. So as those shared costs go up, it's less for everybody after that. So I think that's important to note. We do everything we can, even with transportation and grants, to look for any way that we can bring additional revenue into the district. We go for foster transportation. We send that in. We go to get reimbursed for homeless transportation. Last year, that amounted to, I think, $32,000, right? It was small money coming that goes back to general revenue at the town. But we do everything on our end to be creative, to look for additional funding. I don't think there's anything that we say no to, or the minute that they say there's available funds, we jump on it. Because anything we can do that brings something back to the town helps us in the long run, and we continue to do that. But
I think you raise a good point. And I think just the other point of clarification, in our special education, 22% of that is for homeless and foster. So it is a growing portion of what we're seeing in terms of the needs for transportation. I think another thing to be aware of, and we learned this in speaking with the owner of AA, is transportation companies since COVID have been challenged in 2 particular areas. One is supply chain issues and getting buses and the cost of all those parts. So that has driven their costs up. but the other piece is their talent pool. And they used to be able to kind of bucket into 3 categories, and they lost one of those categories, and those were stay-at-home parents, right, that were looking to just get some extra hours while their children were young, while they were in school, and something that was convenient. With the concept of work from home and remote working, that whole pool has dwindled away. So they don't have the same talent pool coming in, so therefore, to attract talent, they've had to increase their hourly wages for their drivers. So they've been hit in a lot of areas that have driven their costs up. So we are seeing rising costs in transportation because of that.
And I will say and I will give special ed a shout out here because there is a lot of coordination and management that goes and oversight that goes into special education transportation. It's not as easy as we have a student that's going out and we're just going to call up somebody. We're trying to connect with local partners around to try and save costs. So we're calling Dudley, we're calling Oxford, we're calling Douglas to say, can we share, does anybody have a student going here so we can pool our resources and share those costs versus having to take on that cost all to yourself. Because some of these runs can be upwards of $400 to $500 for one run. That's one day. So times that by 180 days. It's very expensive. So they, in special ed, spend a lot of time on the phone trying to coordinate transportation, work with other communities, call multiple vendors to get best pricing that they can to try and save some money and be creative with that. But it's kind of taken on a world of its own, and it's getting very expensive and very difficult to manage. And this is kind of why it's really important for me. I talk about that legislative breakfast. The only way we can address these kind of issues is to be continuously talking to our legislators to say, what can we do and how can we get extra support, and how can we fund these and continue to sustain this level, you know, because it's becoming very difficult to do that.
Chair,
Member Adamopoulos.
so you say that for 2026, we're budgeting, what was the 25 number? How big of an increase do we have?
I don't have the number in front of me, but I believe we're looking at a 62% increase from.
62%.
So it was less than 2 million for. Obviously going to a tough budget season.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Confirm it was 2.4 last year.
$1.5 million more. That's significant. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Well, this has been quite a
Enlightening, huh?
conversation, yes. The next item on the agenda under new business is the discussion and approval of a 1% cap of Webster student enrollment in Commonwealth of Massachusetts virtual schools.
Thank you. I'm not sure if you remembered this from last year, but last year I brought forward to you the Commonwealth of Mass virtual school enrollment restrictions in your packet. I have what I included last year. Last year, the committee capped that approval at 1%. Here. By setting this cap, it doesn't restrict the current enrollment of students. So currently right now they're at, and let me pull it up. I should have put it in my notes. I didn't, but it's over the 1%. And so what the 1% will limit is any new enrollment into the program. It doesn't impact the students who are currently enrolled, so nobody would have to leave there. But currently right now, we are at 1.11. So as students graduate out, they won't allow the enrollment in until it gets under the 1% cap. We are not required to take a vote again but the Department of Education encourages the school committee to revisit this vote annually. So my recommendation would be for the committee to continue to vote the cap at 1%. We'll send that in, so there will be no change for us in Webster.
Mrs. Perangeli, how many students is that 1.11%?
It is, I want to say 19. I'm sorry, I just closed the page. 19,
And this is a program that was developed during COVID
correct,
as an alternative for students that were not able to be in the building.
correct.
We have in our district 19 students that are continuing in that
Yes.
virtual modality. Okay. I don't have any further questions. Does anyone else? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve a 1% cap of Webster student enrollment in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts virtual schools.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion about that? Desiree, would you please pull the committee?
Yes.
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 Yes, motion passes. The next item on the agenda is the review and approval of the 2025 to 2026 school calendar.
Thank you. So in your packet, you have two different calendars. They both have the exact same thing on them, but they were just two different views. I didn't know if the committee preferred a certain view. We were kind of playing around with calendars, trying to make my old eyes make this a little bigger and came up with a couple different versions. But they both have pros, they both have some cons to them. Part of me likes this version of the calendar where you can see the month by month look. But this one, the numbers are so much bigger that you can read, but everything's outlined below. There is no pressure. We can certainly continue with the calendar we had. I just wanted to provide another look. Looking at this calendar, I'll kind of go through highlights month by month. July, we have one school committee meeting. In August, we have one school committee meeting. We have our new teacher orientation on the 21st. We would come back to school on the 25th, have our 3 days of professional development, and then our students would come back on the 28th. We have the Labor Day holiday. In the past, we've had our kindergarten students and pre-K students come back on the 3rd of that week right after Labor Day. We've pushed it to the 8th this year to give additional time for the team to do testing, making sure we have placements of the kids accurate and ready to go. So that'll give us a little bit more. And we've seen, students coming in with higher needs. So just making sure that we're getting all the students in and tested in a timely manner. We have a half a day in September and another half day in October. Again, we stayed with what we did last year. We didn't do 2 days in a month, trying to keep with that. In November, we have one school committee meeting. We have the Thanksgiving break and then Veterans Day. If you look at December, we have one school committee meeting and then we have a nice 2-week break over December. There were no real major changes in the calendar. I would ask that you all put your eyes on it, and if you have any recommendations or feedback or anything that looks, we can look at these things a million times, and there's always something that we miss as we go through. We have our dates, our open house down the bottoms listed. Bartlett High School will be the 17th, Webster Middle School the 11th, and Park Ave Elementary the 18th. We also kept our half day for, I believe it was, we did half day for Park Avenue for their parent conference. They did it all in one day. They said that worked out well this year. They liked that.
What's the date of that one on this calendar?
Park Ave Parent Conferences is the 20th.
Okay. It won't show as a half day on this calendar because the other 2 schools have a full day, is that right?
Correct, correct. There was some concern going into that last year of what our attendance would be, and it actually worked out really well. So, and the schools appreciated having that full day.
Great. I noticed parent-teacher conferences in November and April.
April are for the semester courses. That was at, actually, I didn't know if we needed the middle school. I can't remember. She asked for it, right? She came back and asked for that in April. I know we looked at the high school and having it, because when they have semester courses, if you don't have them in the first half, the parents don't have the opportunity to meet in the second half.
Great.
And Ms. Peterson asked for an additional parent conference.
That's great. It's a great opportunity for, like you said, for the parents and the teachers to meet in that next semester. Good.
So with no snow days, this would put our last day of school as a half a day on the 17th.
And there's only, I think, what is it, like 6 half-days throughout the whole year, which is great. Almost 2 weeks actually, for the
Holiday break, yep.
Yep. Great. Any questions or comments from the committee about the school calendar?
Through the chair.
Member Millet?
Not the calendar, well, it's the new one. I almost liked the new one until I looked again. And it doesn't have all the colors on it that the other does. You'd have to continually read the bottom to see when holidays are and
Correct, that's the one thing we didn't like about it.
exactly, because parents could miss something
Mm-hmm.
very easily because you follow the colors and then you see what they mean. And in the other, there are a lot of things, like all the vacations are not
Yeah, so what we,
on there at all. You'd have to look at the bottom.
right, they tried to match the color with the heading below. So if you saw our purple, then you went to the purple heading and all the other dates were under there. But it is more reading where this you have it by month. You see for the month what you have.
The vacations are on there. They're green. It's just different. I know what you're saying. I wonder if we can do a
But
best.
you wouldn't know when, say, December vacation is, you wouldn't know when it is.
Yeah, they're green.
Unless you looked at the bottom
Oh, I see what,
Yeah.
yeah, but
of the chart.
I wonder if we can do a best of both worlds. I think that the purpose of us having this now is to approve the content of this calendar.
Correct.
What it's gonna,
Right.
Correct.
what days
It
we're
was
at
just
school
a
and what
visual
days
to
we're
see if you
not.
had a preference.
And there might be some formatting changes that we can make to make it a little easier on the eyes and satisfy the,
I certainly wouldn't put 2 calendars out
right. We didn't have to
because that, I wouldn't want any confusion with calendars.
agree.
So it was just, if you preferred a different visual, it's certainly not something I think they both have pros and cons.
If I may, the one thing that I liked about the new one as a parent was I could go to one spot to figure out all the days that I had to make arrangements, right? And I didn't have to go through month by month because all the dates were there. That was one perspective that I gave from the bottom section. Very easy to know what are the days that I need to cover. So I think it's a matter of kind of a visual appeal to different styles and what you use.
This top calendar, what is it made in? Not to get in too granular, but is this like,
One's Word, one's Excel, I think.
definitely the bottom one's Excel?
This one.
Yeah.
That's Word, I think. That
Really?
one Word.
Really?
The original one is an Excel.
Oh,
Yep.
oh, yeah, we can make this easier on the eyes very easily, probably. Yeah.
So little.
Through the chair.
Member Scariglia?
I have actually comments about the dates.
Go for it.
That's what it looks. No, I'm just thinking, I don't know, even if it's just next year, I know parent-teacher conference days can be very tiring for staff. And and you might ask them what they would like, if there was like a way to put a PD day, even if it's a half day on the Friday of the conference week. Because I know like being here late the next day, it's like, I don't know, I would just, like, I'd ask the teachers maybe if they would like a
Mrs.
little
Scariglia.
half day or PD day on a conference week at the Friday. Because I was looking, I was like, oh, there's only like one in March and that's a long month, and then another one in, I think, what was
PD
it?
days or half days. We tried to spread them out so
Is
there
there
is only one a month because we took
Right.
some away.
Right.
Because attendance isn't great on the half days. We
Right.
know that. So we tried to offset
Well,
our-
that's what I was thinking, because I was like, June 17th is late. I was like, and then the 5 snow days, that brings you to the next, that brings you to the June 23rd, you know, and I was like, how can, you know, is there a way to end on like the 12th, to give us some like snow day grace?
So even if I took 2 days away for December, so if you look at the December break, Christmas is on a Thursday, so typically you're not there on Christmas Eve, so you would have a half a day. So you're only picking up 2 days there.
Right, and then.
And then do you come back for 1 day on a
Right,
Friday,
I
which
know.
really isn't
Right.
great for parents. And honestly, we see a lot of absenteeism around that time because people are traveling.
Right. I
Or
know, I was
sick.
thinking- or a half day.
Yeah, or sick.
Sick,
And that was
right.
the other thing we took into account, that you could have 2 weeks kind of as a healthy
Recharge.
recharge for coming back. So we could pick up days, but if I pick up, I don't think it's beneficial to come back for 1 day on January 22nd. So the only thing
June.
would be to come back for a day and a half in December, and then you only pick up that day and a half
Right, and it's still the.
in January, then you're still coming back for a Monday.
Right.
Yeah, and those full-day PDs, I think, you know, our hope is that we have students in school when it's a school day, and we really struggle with attendance on those half-days. And I think students and parents alike feeling like, oh, what's the point? It's a half-day. Even though there was meaningful learning going on during those days. And it looks like the elimination of those half-days has had a positive impact on attendance. So, yeah, it does bring us a little further into June, but we'll have to pray for good weather.
Right.
I don't know. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept or to approve the 2025 to 2026 school calendar as presented.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Just want to add that maybe the formatting might be changed, but the days are going to stay the same.
Yep.
Desiree, would you please poll the committee?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, motion passes. The next item on the agenda is the acceptance of miscellaneous donations from Rosling Company in Hopkinton, Massachusetts. We have an Excel sheet of all of the items.
So in your packet, you have a list of all the donations.
Lots of items here. What precipitated this donation? Do we have an affiliation with this company?
News there.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, it's lots of items. It looks like primarily sensory type items, weighted blanket, low lighting lamp. I'm just going to shout out some things. A laminator, a parachute, everyone's favorite thing when they're in school, right? Some muffin pans for the life skills cooking program, math games, swing, rocking chair. Lots of great items that will, I'm sure, be used by our students. Any questions or comments from the committee about these donations? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept them.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion about that? Desiree, would you please poll the committee?
Yes.
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 Yes. A motion passes, and I would like to thank the Rosslyn Company for their generosity. And the next item on the agenda is the discussion and approval of a behavior coach at Park Avenue Elementary.
I'll ask Dr. Mackay to jump in if I miss anything here. So as you know, we recently had a retirement over at Park Ave of a reading coach that funding came from the Title I grant. After talking with Ms. Pugliafico, she brought forward the request of bringing in a behavior coach. As you know, she's talked about behavior and the readiness of kids coming in. So it was her idea to bring in a behavior coach to work with staff to help with classroom management, troubleshoot kids' problems, and to give ideas that she could work with teams across the district, across the elementary school, to help support the classrooms. Many times we hear it's difficult to get to the learning because we're dealing with the behaviors. So the hope is that this position could bring some stability and support to the staff around that, to help them get to the learning. So in your packet, you have the justification sheet that we request when new positions are being sought after. And then you also have a job description of what that employee would be doing. Again, this is a grant-funded position. It would come from Title I, and the funding is available for that. Did I miss anything? Yeah.
The only thing that I'll correct is that it was an academic interventionist that retired, not the reading coach, because
Oh.
I don't want people to misunderstand that. And so this position would be a behavior support coach, also funded by Title I instead of funding the academic interventionist. I think that one of the things that we've heard consistently from the staff and from what our data tells us is that our pyramid is inverted. And you know the work that we've been doing over the last few years on Tier 1 instruction and ensuring that Tier 1 instruction is as fit as it can be, and that we're paying attention to grade level standards. And we are, despite the years of academic intervention that we're doing, our pyramid is inverted. We have more kids that are appearing in Tier 2 and 3 than are on grade level. And the fix that we believe the fix is not to increase academic intervention, but to increase what's happening at grade level classrooms, at grade level instruction. And I just want to assure everyone that a behavior support coach is a fundable item out of Title I, because Title I is typically seen as literacy, but it's literacy, it's math, and SEL. And so it is an allowable use of our Title I funds. So I just wanted to reassure everybody of that.
Thank you, Dr. Mackay and Mrs. Perangeli. Any questions or comments from the committee?
Through the chair.
Member Millet?
I have a question. After reading this, there's a lot of support by the coach for the classroom teacher. How about the other side? What is in place for the student besides the teacher in the classroom? Should there another side to this, that there is support for the student also, besides what the teacher is learning that they can do, maybe de-escalate and so forth? Has to be another part to this.
I'm glad that you brought that up. I think that that brings us back to why it was so important for us to participate in the SEB Academy, because what we don't have yet is a good articulation of our multi-tiered system of support for student behavior that is aligned. Like, I think we have better structures for a student can't read, therefore you do this. When a student is having difficulty with a social emotional issue, including behavior, that there isn't as much readily available to us currently as far as systems that we can say, you know, here's what we want the support to look like in the classroom at Tier 1. We want to make sure that in all classrooms, students feel A, B, and C. Teachers have the capacity to set up structures that would enable pro-social skills, for instance. And then to utilize data to show what happens when a student isn't making it, what's the next step? We've had different steps in the past. We've had like our ups and downs with the different programs, Journey, STAR, all of those programs in over the years. COVID kind of disintegrated some of that stuff. But we have to get back to articulating like how do we support the student and not just respond to the behavior and remove, and without having that attention to what's happening in the classroom first, and without having, you know, supportive programming outside of the classroom, we find ourselves in the situation that we find ourselves in. So our hope is that our participation in the SCB Academy is helping us understand, like, A, what are our PBIS structures? B, what happens, how do we use the structures that we have in PBIS to analyze the data that we collect about student wellness, including our behavior data, but also not just the behavior data, but students that perhaps have some social issues that aren't captured in, like, behavior incidents. And how do we support those students and what happens next? And so I think that it's a good question. I think it's timely because our involvement with SCB is a 3-year commitment. This isn't a quick fix. It's a 3-year commitment to establish those processes. I think that this position is being put on the table at this time because we have heard from the staff that, like Mrs. Perangeli said, we can't get, like, we know we have all this work that we're doing in Tier 1, we can't get to the instruction because of the student behavior. And so we can't just address the student, we can't just address the teacher, it really has to be a combination of both. So we are working on building those structures to support students as well, not just to support teachers. Supporting teachers will help support students ultimately, but we are working on that.
You can't have one without the other.
Through the chair.
Member Scriglia?
So Park, and Mrs., I know Mrs. Kulapko's not here, but Park Ave, so they have a principal, a vice, so what is the administration, the staff there look like? Is principal, vice principal, is there a dean?
We have a principal, we have 2 assistant principals, and we have a dean.
Okay, so for the behavior interventions, because it's for the teacher, but I'm just saying, I'm just envisioning a student having a difficult time in the classroom, because I saw that in the justification, there was a pretty high percentage of reported major incident behavior concerns. So I have a student who's being unsafe in my classroom, I need him or her removed. Do they go to this dean or do they go to the assistant, one of the assistants?
They all participate in that.
They all, so there's not one designated or 2 or designated, so it could be anybody.
All hands on deck.
Okay.
Yep.
And so, and also in that, so that school, it's how many school adjustment counselors are there?
4.
1, and it's K to
4.
4. Pre-K to 4, so 4 school adjustment counselors. And is there a BCBA in the school, or is it a district BCBA or no BCBA?
Nope, there's a BCBA in the school.
In the school. All right, I'm just trying to see, like, you know, because it is a high percentage. I'm just like, how is this being structured, like you're saying, to support those students who, like, the responsible staff per, you know, a student. And for the interventionist, I was looking at the qualifications. It's a bachelor's and master's, but are we not pigeonholing ourselves for some sort of teaching license or social working license, which just anybody with that 5 years of practical experience in behavior?
Yes. Yep.
So
Because we talked about whether it needed to be special ed, but we don't want it to be a special ed. You know, it's not just that, and it's
Right.
not just a BCBA. It could be somebody who has the experience that has been there in behavior.
Yeah, I think that certain people with certain qualifications will gravitate to a position like that.
Right.
However, if we limit it, if we said we wanted a BCBA, then the job is different than the job of the way that we have our BCBAs. Could that knowledge highly inform the position? Absolutely, but they're not being hired as it's not a requirement to be a BCBA to do that job, right? Same with special educator. Special education is a wonderful background to have for this position, but they're not functioning as a special educator behavior teacher. Do you know what I mean? So if we set it only in that way, then we
This could
would.
be a student that's just that tier 1, they're not identified with a disability, they're just emotionally, something's not regulated in there.
It's really for coaching the teachers and providing support to the teachers to build classrooms that can support students. We want, ultimately, our goal is to keep students in their classrooms as much as possible without having to send out. Of course, there are those times, safety issues that we have to send out. But I think that with all of the discussions that we've had about the number of services that we end up ultimately incurring, including like out-of-district placements and specialized transportation, the more we leave the classroom and have like less capacity to deal with, the more likely we are to increase the opportunity for those things to happen. I don't want that to come off the wrong way. We want to build capacity within the building. We want children to stay. We believe that children should stay. We want children to stay in their classrooms because that's where they're learning.
Who's the PBIS coordinator now at the CAP? Is there what designated staff person or
That's the dean,
it is the
right?
It's the dean and,
In the council.
no, it's the dean and the assistant principal, so Keith and
Oh.
Matt.
so hopefully this person would be like an integral part of that team.
Through the chair,
Member Millet?
there's another piece to this. When I was on staff, at one point, when we had some similar issues, we had a psychologist that came in, and we actually would have a meeting with parents, the counselor, and sometime the student was also brought in at one point. And what we would do is actually make a contract with, involve the student too. And it worked. And parents liked getting the help. So I think that's another aspect we have to look at, is that to include the parent and the child together, not separately. It has to be, and we're all in this together, not just separate things. I mean, we're starting, which is good. Can always use some coaching. But I think what I found from my own experience, parents really wanted some help because they might be seeing some of the similar things at home, and they wanted that instruction and help. Just a couple of things to start with and to do.
Yeah, I think that what we've uncovered or what we know happens is that our school counselors are making connections with families, they're truly like case managers, systems people that are forging those relationships with families that perhaps are harder to connect with. But they're like the safe haven they're the ones that do have those connections. And I'm very confident that the element of connecting with families and our school counselors is happening. Do we need to do more? We absolutely need to do more. And that is attention to the whole child. What we understand about working in a system with the whole child is that if you affect one aspect of that system, it impacts the other aspects of that system. School can't work on school alone. And so we need each other. Families need us, we need the families. So that's really our motto. By helping, how does this position help with that? This position, I think, would be an integral part of like an interdisciplinary team to do exactly what you're talking about, to like have these meetings to talk about how can we collaborate, not just one person take over and fix it, because one person can't fix it. So what we've been doing up to this point, obviously we need to do more, we need to do something different because we have the results that we have. And so the school is really reaching out to us to say, like, help us in a way that we've not done before. We've had support programs for students. We haven't necessarily had coaching and support for teachers to be able to increase everyone's sense of confidence in managing student behaviors and supporting students within the classrooms.
That's a great point. And I think, very few educators pursued that vocation so that they could manage behavior, right? But I think we've come to a point in public education where, whether it be the COVID-19 pandemic, or I think this was probably brewing even before that, but I think it certainly accelerated it. It's really changed the profile of the kids that all districts are educating, not just Webster. And certainly, I think impacting the number of behavioral concerns that are happening in the classroom in a way that limits them benefits every student, because students that are not having those behavioral challenges are being impeded in their learning at times when a teacher is needing to divert their attention to the student that's in need. And certainly, we want that student to get what they need in that moment. But I think this is something that will, this will raise the outcomes for everybody. So.
And I think it's important, Ms. Millett, to point out, we've had a school psychologist on our list all year that we haven't been able to fill. We haven't, actually 2.5 years, I think we've been trying to fill. So it's different when you're contracting, you're not having that person who's actually a part of your school community and there all the time. You're taking care of the testing and the things that need to be, but they're not integrated in that every day. And that's why we believe in keeping that position there. It's a need for us, but the difficulty in filling that is it's not just here, it's everywhere. But we continue to look for that because it's important. That role is important within the school community.
Agree.
Through the chair, just quickly, just to touch upon, do you guys go to job fairs at all? I don't know, that's something maybe you'd be interested in, Worcester State or Clark or local universities who have school psychologists or speech pathologists majors. They have job fairs, maybe somebody could go and represent our school or our district as a means to kind of say, hey, come work for us, come work with us. I don't know.
We certainly could do that. I know I've reached out to the colleges before. I was actually handing out business cards at one about a year ago. I went up and down the line asking people if they were in school psychologists, looking for one. We can certainly, it's a good idea. I'm not opposed to it. I think the more we can do in outreach, the better, because it's an important role. So we can certainly look into that.
In a previous job, I attended job fairs through my school, and it was just a nice way to just build relationships with, and if it opens a way for student teachers or school psychologists, had doing hours, mentorship hours, just providing that additional resource for free, without sounding like that, but yeah, so any kind of relationship we can make with other universities, or can't imagine it would hurt us, just maybe an afternoon or a morning out of district, but.
I would reach out to local colleges that have like school counseling programs, and I would, including places in Boston, and I'd be like, hello, I'm here. Like, I'm happy to support. I'm happy to supervise a social work student. Please, like, send them to our school geographically, unless you're, and that's the difficulty for us, is geographically, if it's not one of the schools, in our vicinity in Worcester or something like that, it's hard to come to if you're in school in Boston. So, but I think we have tried. We can continue trying now that COVID is over. I think that might be something for us to investigate further.
This has been a great, robust conversation, for sure. Any other comments from the committee? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the behavior coach position at Park Ave Elementary.
So moved.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? Desiree, would you please pull the committee?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, motion passes. Thank you all for for the discussion and the support we're giving our teachers and students here. The next item on the agenda is a review, transfer, signing of warrants, bills, payroll, and vouchers.
I forgot to bring up the dates for the dates for workshop. I forgot that. I have 3 dates. Yeah, I can email them to you if you'd like.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Desiree, would you please pull the committee?
Member Adamopoulos?
Yes.
Member Scarica?
Yes.
Member Millet?
Yes.
Chair Study.
Yes, meeting adjourned. Good night, everyone.